Welcome to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast with your hosts, Mike Randall and Gus Kearns.
Welcome in, listeners, to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast, where we're always talking everything college hoops. Could have been anywhere else on the dial, but you chose to be here with us, Mike and Gus, and we appreciate that. College basketball season has flipped to February. That means we're one short month away from holding a bracket in our hands. Mike, how does that projection sound for you? Would you like to mark up a bracket with a pencil, a Sharpie, maybe an Expo marker and some sort of Smart Pal? Like, are you excited about the possibility of holding a real bracket?
I am uber excited, as you know, for the bracket preview show.
Very good.
I mean, this is at a level, Gus. You and I used to always get together for the NBA draft. Remember when Weber went first and I just kept pausing the draft and playing pictures of Weber dunking before he was traded or whatever happened. Okay, with Penny, I guess. I don't know. Whatever.
Yes,
anyway,
with Penny. I
am so excited for this. I cannot wait for the bracket preview. I'm excited to hold the bracket so much that I just want the preview show so we can go back and forth. And to prepare for that, all I've done on Twitter is continue to annoy fans of teams that I'm not putting high enough in the bracket preview. I started with UCLA. That went very well. Very, very. They were very happy. And now it went with Purdue. Okay. And what's funny is I did not have Purdue as a 1 because I did not think prior to the destruction of Illinois that they were 1. I thought the metrics, again, this isn't what I want. It's what I think is going to happen.
Correct.
So I had them as gasp a 2. Okay. And somebody sends LOL Purdue over Kansas, Kansas over Purdue, LOL. Right. And then they give me the winky face when Kansas loses. Okay. So do I give them the winky face back now that Purdue is taken to the woodshed in Ann Arbor tonight? No, I think I have to be more mature, although being mature is not one of my better characteristics, Gus.
I think anytime a winky face emoji gets involved, I think we can just steer clear of it. I think that's my general rule of thumb.
I think, Purdue fans, you are now a dose. Just saying, I don't think you're a 1, but whatever. Okay.
Michigan looked great tonight. Caleb Houston actually looked really great on the wing, complementing the inside force that is Hunter Dickinson. Hunter Dickinson hit a couple of threes. Diabate is really impactful on both ends of the floor. Mm-hmm. It seems like Jones is figuring some things out for Michigan. So yeah, I'm a little bit back in with them, even though they're very similar to Oregon. No, Mike, like where they looked like a little bit of a train wreck, and now they have some things figured out along the way. And I don't know if I'd want to try to match up with Houston and Hunter Dickinson inside. I'm not sure I'd like to do that.
Full disclosure, Gus, I can't lie to you. I will be very excited to fade them in their next game. I'm really looking forward to that. I think they had a night. I think it was a spectacular night, and kudos to them for a fantastic performance. But if you're asking me, I am very uber excited to see this team, Michigan, be faded. Their upcoming schedule.
Ohio State is next,
Ohio
right?
State. I will be all in on Ohio State this Saturday. I'll tell you right now, Ken Palm has it as Michigan -1. Thank you very much. Then they go to Iowa. Okay.
Who just dropped 110.
And then down screen, back screen at Wisconsin. So I get it. I'm going to be fading them. I think it was a nice win, but I've been down on Michigan the whole year, and it's been profitable for me. But tonight, they were perfect.
So I guess that leads us into our initial talking point on the podcast this evening, and that's going to be a question that came from a listener, Tanner out in Roxbury. What's up? Thank you for joining the pod and contributing. His question is pretty simple, Mike. Does Villanova have a shot at the national championship this particular season? I think we can dive into this and help Tanner out. What do you think?
Yeah, let's take a look at it. And Tanner, thank you for the question. I'll look at it 2 ways. Gus, I'll start, then you do your thing. I think if we're going to look at where they can win the national title, we should look at how they won the national title in 2016, 2018. Just my thoughts. Okay?
Reflection.
So I went back and looked at 2016. Now, what jumped out about the 2016 Villanova Wildcats? Veteran team, 56 in experience. Excellent balance on offense and defense. They were third in adjusted offensive efficiency and fifth in adjusted defensive efficiency per Ken Pom. They were super efficient on 2-point percentage. I remember you interviewed John Gassaway and talked about this.
Correct.
Talked about how important and how much of a weapon it is if you are efficient on your 2-pointers. They had the second best 2-point percentage in the nation that year, 57.4%. They made their free throws, always a nice bonus, 78.2%. That was second in the country as well. And they forced turnovers, but they didn't turn the ball over themselves. I mean, really, the 2016 team was a poster child on how to do this because they covered all their bases, even though, Gus, they played at a pretty slow pace. So let's go to 2018. Take a look at this team. Still had a veteran team again, a 96th in the country in experience. They had brilliant balance again on offense and defense. They were first and 11th on offense and defensive efficiency. Again, super efficient on the 2-pointers, 59% from 2-pointers, just as good as they were in 2017. They also made their free throws again, top 10. They didn't produce as many turnovers defensively, but they did not turn the ball over, and they compensated for that with a much better 3-point percentage in 2018 to 2016. As a team, they shot over 40% from 3-point range, and the pace was a little faster. Now, take those two things, Tanner, look at 2022. What do we have here? Well, veteran team, 61st in experience. Brilliant balance on offense and defense, 6th and 19th on both ends of the floor. They're not producing a ton of turnovers, but they're not turning the ball over themselves, and they are shooting the three fairly well, over 36%. Their pace is closer to 2016. However, the biggest difference between this team and the last two Villanova teams is their 2-point percentage efficiency. It is under 50%, 49.6%. What I'm saying, Tanner, is I think they can, but they need to improve on that 2-point proficiency. They're playing at a slow pace. They need to be efficient on offense. They're also not as deep. They're not as deep with some weapons coming off the bench as they were in those other 2 years. So the bench is a difference. The 2-point efficiency is a difference. If you start seeing Villanova hit a higher percentage of their twos, they do, Gus, I think, have the same sort of schematic as they did in their two national championship years.
Look, I think the numbers aren't going to lie there. And you're correct. When we talked to John Gassaway of ESPN, he highlighted that 2-point efficiency number for Villanova during that title run and said that's going to be an important part, previewing that tournament, saying like this is going to be a weapon for them moving forward. Here's my only takeaway or my only reason to step back. Both of those teams had NBA talent on the roster.
Okay.
Both of those teams had, we can say, NBA starters on the roster. How about that? I don't know if this roster contains that level of talent. And I think at some point, you kind of have to look at the players on the floor and say, what is the ceiling for this roster or team of players talent-wise? Are there a bunch of NBA players on the roster? Are there one or two? Is it a Wisconsin situation with Johnny Davis and everybody else? I don't know who that player might be. Are we going to say like Samuels is going to have like a 7-year NBA career? Okay, maybe. I'm down with that. I'm not opposed to that. I don't know if I think Gillespie finds a spot. I don't know if he, as impactful as Brunson is for the Mavericks. I'm not sure if that's a thing. So I think the numbers are going to tell you the truth here, Tanner. But then I think you also have to incorporate the eye test of what the talent tells you. And I think they're going to fall a little short this year because of that talent level. And, just to back up what Mike was referring to, that talent level speaks to that 2-point efficiency. Like you need shot makers. And that's what Villanova had at a number of different positions, whether we're talking about Josh Hart, whether we're talking about Chris Jenkins, whether we're talking about Brunson, whether we're talking about DiVincenzo. Like all of those guys are shot makers. I'm not sure who the elite shot makers are on this particular Villanova roster, and that's what gives me pause.
It's a really good point, Gus. Looking back on 2016, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges was a freshman.
Yeah, NBA players.
Yep. Going to 2018, Bridges again, DiVincenzo, Jalen Brunson, Pascal. Okay.
NBA players.
Yeah, it's a good point. So that's the question. I guess you want to look at it that way. I think that's totally fair. which goes back, Gus, to the point that if they're going to make a run, if we're assuming that they're not two NBA players on this roster, not G League, I'm talking NBA players.
Correct.
They have to be efficient. They have to be more efficient because they don't have depth this year. Bridges came off the bench in 2016. They don't have depth this year. They got to be more efficient on offense. I think this is what it comes down to.
I agree. I think if you're not going to be more efficient on offense and that's going to be a deficiency, then you have to make it up somewhere else. And when you ran through those numbers, there wasn't necessarily a category where they were making it up someplace else. So I think in my eyes, I like the breakdown of the numbers. I'm always going to follow numbers and look at the metrics deeply, just like you would, Mike, just Tanner, just like you would, and any other fan out there would. But we also have to pay attention to like what type of talent is on that team. And listeners, if there's anybody else out there that would like a breakdown of any other teams, reach out on Twitter or email the show. We're at SDS Podcast on Twitter. Efficiency of keystrokes, of course. And you can email the show, sdspodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to give Mike a follow over on Twitter as well. Randall Rant. You're going to want to see his projections for this bracket show and the feedback that he gets from it. So anybody else need a breakdown for their championship possible roster team program? Happy to do it on the next podcast if needed. Mike, what else do you think you want to dive into here as far as a rundown for the listeners on what we should be paying attention to?
Well, the missus and I watching Providence, as you know, every week.
You're very good.
So I've seen every Providence game. I think anyone that's televised, I've seen. And so this triggered my discussion with you. I want to get your opinion. Name me some guys that you have noticed in college basketball who are maybe not the best player on the team, but a really critical piece. And I will start off with one and then fire away. Jared Bynum is so important to Providence. He has hit multiple big threes at the end of the game. First that jumps to mind, Xavier. He has also been a terror on the ball. Al Durham is not a great on-ball defender. Bynum will pick your pocket twice in a row. That's a skill. And I'm not even talking about Justin Minaya, who may be the Big East Defensive Player of the Year. And we still haven't talked about Nate Watson. AJ Reeves is back. I'm very high on Providence. I know the metrics say that, that maybe that their luck metric. Stop. They have a great point guard now, Durham, really solid Division I point guard at a big conference. Jared Bynum could be point guard, but he's making big shots. He's a shot maker, and he's a great on-ball defender. Minaya's been great doing all the glue stuff for them. Reeves can make big shots. He's finally healthy. Nate Watts in the middle. I hate Croswell. But besides that, this team is very, very good. And so Jared Bynum, to me, is a critical point because you don't think of him when you think of Providence, but I think he's really important. So I'm curious, give me these critical juncture, critical player guys that you've noticed in college basketball who may not be the lead scorer, may not be the best player, but are really important to team success.
Okay, so a couple come to mind right away. I was actually going to bring up Minaya as well. So I think that's a great point on your end. He has been indispensable for them, and Coach Cooley has refused to take him off the floor. I mean, he's played 38 minutes, 39 minutes, 40 minutes. Like, he is so crucial to what they're trying to do on both ends of the floor, but especially as that defensive stopper. And then if you think about defensive stopper, Big East, I think you have to go directly to Marquette and think of Darryl Morsell, the transfer from Maryland.
Yep.
I think you have to include him. And I think a good way to look at this is the success of their current team and maybe the lack of success from their former team. So if you just take a peek at Maryland, I mean, I know they're on the other side of an unbelievably ugly result due to Iowa, but they've been down. And Marquette arguably is one of the biggest surprises in college basketball this year, and definitely the biggest surprise inside the Big East, maybe alongside Providence. So I think Darryl Morsell is one of those guys, and he's made big shots, and he defends multiple positions.
Shaka's doing a great job, and it's allowed Justin Lewis to be the lead dog, but Morsell can make a shot at the end of the game as well. That's a great call. That's a great call.
I think another guy we should pay attention to, and he's the leading scorer. He's the leading everythinger. He is the only player in college basketball right now that's averaging 20 points, 5 boards, and 5 rebounds. And I love these student athletes that just, fill up the box score and do everything. Linus Williams of Wake Forest. If we take a look at what Wake Forest is doing, they might be one of those teams that reaps the benefit of the overall ACC being down and they sneak in and grab one of those bids. But also, if you take a look at Oklahoma, where he came from, they're very bubblicious right now. They are not the normal lock that they have been in years past, or in the conversation, the proper part of the bubble conversation. And he's made Wake Forest like very viable inside the ACC. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was player of the year inside the league. He's playing that well.
Excellent. And did you see the other night he made some pass in their game?
The one-handed cross-court skip pass was insane. I think it was his offhand too.
Yeah, I'd like to thank him for that. Was an easy win for me. God, NC State's just, please, it's train wreck. But Wake Forest is good, folks, and he's the key. He is the most underrated, best guy on the team. Such a critical player.
And how about Camara from Dayton, another Georgia guy that was on that team with Katie Johnson and Wheeler, right? And now you look at what he's doing. He's kind of in a leadership role at Dayton, and this Dayton team is an absolute A-10 monster. They took down Kansas earlier this year. They're starting 3 or 4 freshmen, and they can beat anybody any night. Like if they sneak in, I would not want to see them on the other side of the bracket. So I think Camera from Dayton is one of those players as well. He's not going to be the leading scorer. Holmes, the freshman there, is doing great things. Love the little guard Smith. He's also running a tight show. But the lefty from downtown, he is really having an impact and really helping define Dayton on the floor, on both ends of the floor.
I remember beginning of the year, I was watching them closely because they opened against Illinois Chicago. Gus, I don't know if you know, I like them. But then they lost 3 in a row to UMass Lowell at home. Awful. Lipscomb home. Awful. Austin Peay home. Those are 3 really rough losses early in the year. But then they beat Miami. You're like, okay. Then they beat Kansas. And I said, oh, okay. They followed that with a win over Belmont. They lost on the road to SMU. No shame there. They beat Virginia Tech at home. That's a nice win. They lost away to Kermit, but they've had a good run here where they won 7 of 8. They lost away at St. Louis. No shame. They pounded Duquesne. Oh, dear God. Duquesne. Place. Danbro's going to get fired. But they have a nice group of teams coming up here. They can finish off very strong. They're 8-3 in the A-10. They have G-Dub at home. Away Rhode Island. That'll be a battle. Away St. Joe's. Not easy. Home UMass enough. LaSalle away, Richmond away, Davidson home. So they end with 2 really tough games, but they can get a couple of these games here. They can get themselves to 11, 12 wins in conference. Dayton, for a team that started 1-3 with 3 consecutive home losses to UMass Lowell, Lipscomb, and Austin Peay, absolutely should be in the tournament. This is great.
Yeah, I think he's a big part of that success that they found, and they got rolling in the right direction. And the next 2 that come to mind for me, Mike, are both from UNC. And it's Walker and Walker. We can take obviously the big name is Walker Kessler from Auburn, and we can see Auburn getting the first number 1 national ranking in school history, pretty much behind him and Jabari Smith in the front line. So maybe UNC might have wanted to hold on to him, but also on a lower level, but just as impactful, Walker Miller, who transferred to Monmouth for his final year of eligibility. And you look at Monmouth. Maybe their last result aside, Monmouth has been a factor inside their conference, and Walker Miller is playing at an all-conference level. He's put up 20 points multiple times, and he's an old-school big man. He was a walk-on at UNC, obviously, helped push around Baycott and all of those other bigs at UNC the past couple of years, and now he finally is in a starting role, and he's really thriving. And Monmouth is reaping the benefits of Walker Miller finding success in New Jersey. So I think both of those Walkers from UNC are impactful guys, obviously for the number 1 team in the country. And then for another team, with King Rice, that's, looking to finish high inside their conference.
Yeah, I wouldn't sleep on Monmouth either, folks. I know that they've fallen off and that the MAC is pretty much 11-1 Iona. St. Peter's has bounced back. Siena, again, God, he does it every year.
I don't know how, but he does, yeah.
They were picked like middle of the pack. Now they're 7-4 in conference. Yep. Monmouth has hit the skids. It's still being tremendous against the spread early on. 4 straight losses. Hofstra, St. Peter's, Marist, Iona. Iona on OT, that was a tough loss.
Yeah.
And they did lose to Marist home, so they got swept by Marist. Really rough here. But hopefully they get it going. They're the type of team to get hot in the MAC tournament. That's an excellent call. And as for Walker Kessler, just looks dominant there at Auburn. How is he not more dominant in North Carolina? I don't know, but two guys that are really good that are playing key roles. Kessler at a bigger school, a bigger terms top 5 school in Auburn, and the other person going to Monmouth here, Walker Miller. So both have made an impact. Great call.
And then I think the final one, and this one's kind of obvious with recent results, is Xavier Pinson at LSU. LSU started off like a house of fire, one of the last lossless teams in the nation, climbed their way up inside the top 15 national ranking, and have really just a precipitous drop. And it's all due to when Xavier Pinson got hurt. Once he left the lineup, they have really had trouble finding their way offensively, and they've really had to rely on their defense. So that's kept them in games, but they are not getting into anything that is productive on the offensive side. And that's because Xavier Pinson is missing. And then if you just look at, he left Missouri, and we see how, how scatterbrained Missouri is currently. And, he's one of those players that kind of kept Missouri, I'm going to say, on the level before he left. And then he brought LSU to a higher level, and hopefully they get him back this season and can right the ship.
Yeah, I think we have to be leery of LSU in the tournament, and people aren't going to want to hear about them, but they're still number 2 in the country in defense. They're number 9 in 3-point percentage defense. They've really gotten going with Pinson in the lineup and have not been great without him. Lost 6 of 7, went from 3-1 to 4-6 in conference, but they beat Texas A&M away. That is an impressive win. Now they have Mississippi State, they have Georgia, South Carolina, all in preparation for the game away at Kentucky. They are the type of team that can battle Kentucky. Kentucky looks absolutely like a number 1 seed, absolutely like a national championship contender.
No doubt.
But LSU is the type of team that can go in there and give them trouble. They're going to battle them. They're going to play defense. They're going to offensive rebound, and they just need a couple guys to get hot. And Pinson plays a huge role because their offensive metrics have been putrid in conference, mainly because he hasn't been there. They're shooting 65% from the free throw line, and they're the second worst team in 2-point percentage offense. I mean, that's rough because you're going against, how much I love the SEC. But that's the game I'm looking for. Wednesday, February 23rd, they're headed to Kentucky. Let's see if they can get a 4-game winning streak headed into that game.
And we've seen with recent results between these two teams, there could be something exciting that ends up there. That's been a thing the last couple of seasons between those two programs. All right, Mike, let's do a quick look back of a couple of results from the past week and just I just want to hear your quick thoughts. What were your quick takeaways? I'll give you 3 right off the bat, and then we'll give you a few more. Just tell us exactly what went through your college basketball mind when you saw that Arkansas kept it rolling and the bus carried on and handed number 1 Auburn a loss 80-67 at Bud Walton. We had Purdue humbling Illinois, and then we had Wisconsin getting right at Michigan State. What were the 3 out of those 3 games? What are a couple of trends or a couple of thoughts that you had floating around that college basketball brain of yours?
Well, the Arkansas is for trick tech, right? For tractic, whatever we called it.
For tractic?
Because Auburn's favored on the road here going to Arkansas. Arkansas has won 8 games in a row coming into this game and just played a fantastic game against Auburn. They knocked them off. JT Notte, big shots after big shots. Jalen Williams really played very, very well in this game. You look at the box score between Auburn and Arkansas. Auburn only shot 25% from 3-point range and turned the ball over 19 times. That Arkansas defense, fantastic. I've been on Musselman. You know that. I think much like Shaka Smart, he has found the type of team. He had a lot of success in the tournament last year. He's got a home. He's done a great job. He had rotator cuff surgery. He's got a sling on. He's still coaching. Really excellent job here by Muss over at Arkansas. They look great. No bad loss for Auburn, but again, winning on the road is going to be difficult. They went to OT, couldn't pull it out. Next game you mentioned, I think Purdue's the best team in the Big Ten. I don't really care about tonight. They had a big game against Michigan. Fine, no problem. I still think they are. That was a great win over Illinois at home. Illinois is going to match them every step of the way. I have noticed that Kofi Cockburn struggles against quality bigs. He beats up on some of the weaker bigs, but he's not as dominant. Just something to notice, because if he can't score, that team is going to struggle because they need him to open up shots on the outside. I think Purdue is a terrible matchup for Illinois. much like Loyola Chicago was last year. It's all about the matchups. I just think Purdue, they meet Illinois again. I think they're going to beat them again because they are one of the few teams that can match up inside with Coburn. And Wisconsin with Michigan State. Folks, I don't want to hear about this luck metric anymore. Okay, I understand that if you're making your bets, you want to stay on the right side of the luck. And if you have a team that is really lucky, you look for regression. And a team that's really unlucky, you look for positive regression. Wisconsin's good. Wisconsin is good. I talked to Pat Fitzmaurice over at Fantasy Pros for fantasy football because he lives out in Milwaukee, and he loves this team. He said that a lot of what went on last year, he told me, was because Alondo Tucker was on the staff, and they said the reports that he sees out there is that he was poisoning the team by like turning them against guard, that there was a lot of that backstabbing going on. He said it was in the papers, and that once they got rid of Tucker, it really changed the whole dynamic, and those other players came out. But Greg Gard is in the running for Coach of the Year, has done a superior job with this Wisconsin team. They are 19-4. They're 10-3. That's a big win on the road at Michigan State. Really well done. And as we've mentioned, they're doing it with a little bit of a faster pace. They're doing it while not shooting as well from three-point range. But what they are doing is they're not turning the ball over, and they are rebounding one and done. Really impressive. Now they have Rutgers at home on Saturday, which is the type of team that can mess with them a little. You know, Rutgers has the stigma that they can't win on the road. Okay. So that's the type of team that can really battle Wisconsin because they like to get dirty. Then they have Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Rutgers again away. Get your popcorn for that. Purdue at home, that's a huge one, and Nebraska. And remember, Gus, last thing on Wisconsin, when they played Purdue earlier in the year, January 3rd at Purdue, they did cover. I know that because I lost that bet. 74-69 without Johnny Davis in that game. Just keep that in mind.
Right. And I think them Wisconsin playing at that quicker pace is an absolute result of having Johnny Davis on the roster and letting him go and do his thing a tiny bit and to get him more touches because he's one of the more talented people they've had since Alondo Tucker probably. Like, so that's not, or Evan Turner. How about that? Like that might be a thing. Next three that we'll pay attention to. And you mentioned, I can't ignore this. You mentioned the big man from Arkansas. He is shooting the ball unbelievably well from downtown. And he is also defending at a super high level. He has been playing unbelievably lights out during their little streak here. All right, Mike, how about UConn outlasting Marquette in a great Big East grind game? We got Santa Clara, shocking St. Mary's, Luke Neer's St. Mary's. And we have Toledo kind of stomping on Ohio. And you thought that game would be really close. So what were your takeaways from UConn, Marquette, and then maybe Santa Clara and the WCC in general, and then Toledo taking out Ohio in the top two teams inside that conference?
I'm not high on UConn this year. I think he's done a good job, and I think they're solid. I struggle to pick them against good teams, but they have Marquette's number because inside Sunogo can't be stopped. Marquette does not want to see these teams with players inside that they can really match up with. I am shocked that Marquette, they beat Illinois earlier this year. Now, in that game, there was no Kofi Coburn.
Correct.
If they play them again, Illinois is going to take them to the woodshed.
Yes.
Shaka, fantastic job. Everyone's buying in. We all have a kryptonite, Gus, and theirs is the interior game. It's just a bad matchup. I love Marquette. I just think Connecticut matches up well with them. I am not a Connecticut guy. They haven't been great against the spread either, and I have no problem picking against them. But I do think that in this situation, when you have a big against Marquette, that is their kryptonite. The Santa Clara one with St. Mary's. St. Mary's, we've talked about this. They play at a slow pace.
Right.
So there's going to be more variance. When you play slower, you don't have as many possessions. That's why the fast teams want the possessions because they feel the talent will eventually win out. That's what happened with St. Mary's here. It was a shocker. I still like St. Mary's. I think they're playing very well tonight. They blew somebody out tonight. Pepperdine, maybe. They blew somebody out home, and they covered, by the way. So I have no problem with that. Toledo, Toledo is at the point where, again, you have to come up with a reason for me to pick against them in the Mid-American Conference. They're first overall. They're 11-2 in conference. Big win over Ohio. So now they're tied. 15-point win over Ohio. They swept them on the season series. They beat them by 18. They are the favorite to me to win the MAC tournament. Coach Kowalchuk has done a wonderful job there for many years. They have a lot of games coming up. They are projected to win all of the games. I guess you want to say away Buffalo could be frisky, Gus.
Could be.
I guess it's only by one, but Buffalo has sort of disappointed me this year. Just a little too sloppy, herky-jerky up and down here with the ball. But Toledo does not do that. They don't turn the ball over. They're solid fundamentals. And how do you not like a Toledo Rockets team, Gus, that is number one in the MAC in 2-point percentage, 55.6%, and number one in the MAC in 2-point percentage defense at 45.6. So if you're going to beat them, you got to beat them by turning them over, which is hard to do, and you got to beat them from beyond the arc, which is difficult to do.
Agreed. And if we're just going to take it, my favorite part of this breakdown is taking a look at the players. And if you look at Williams, the guard from Santa Clara, he played really well against St. Mary's and is looking like one of the better guards inside the WCC. And Ryan Rollins is absolutely rolling for Toledo. He's averaging about 20 points a game, shooting at almost 50% from the field. He's shooting at a decent percentage from three, and he's just filling up the box score on all fronts for Toledo. He looks like the best player in the conference by far. And then, Mike, we have to touch on Wyoming getting the OT win against Utah State, and then Colorado State and David Roddy over Nevada. And if you remember last year, Grant Sherfield hit that game winner to put down Colorado State in one of those makeup games, which really drove Colorado State fans crazy. So they kind of flipped the script on last year's result. So a little takeaway from the Mountain West.
Yeah, Wyoming. Wyoming's one of these teams. They are currently in Ken Palm 8th in luck. Okay, so therefore they're not good. All right, Wyoming. You keep getting favorable numbers because people don't think Wyoming's good at basketball. They're thinking back to the Fennis Dembo years. Sorry, had to drop that one. Look it up, folks.
Have to.
Wyoming.
Yes.
But Wyoming is good. The only thing I was shocked about this is I got this pick right overall, but I lost on the live line because Gus, when they got to halftime and Justin Bean had 0 points. And Utah State was winning. I'm like, this is not going to be a problem. But they came back. They're gritty. They're gutty. EK, tremendous. Hunter Maldonado, superior. Great win for Wyoming. They continue to be undervalued in the market.
Correct.
Wyoming now 9-1. And don't look now, Gus. San Jose State, New Mexico away. All right, maybe, I guess. Patino, maybe. Okay. Air Force at home, no way. Then Colorado State on the road. That's going to be the game. So Wyoming, Jeff Linder, great job. Wyoming wants a Mountain West title. They want it. They can sniff it. They want it. They're tied with Boise State. Tremendous job. Colorado State, Roddy the Body. We like to party. Gus said it. We went from Hunter Maldonado to David Roddy. You're looking at possible Mountain West Player of the Year right there for either one of those guys. You know what I think about my Rams. That was a payback spot in the biggest way. I was positive they're going to get that. Annoyed me. I should have bet the revenge spot for Wagner today against Mount St. Mary's at home. I got thrown off because Elijah Ford is out, so I wasn't sure about that.
Wagner's rolling, by the way.
Yeah, Wagner's rolling. They won by 11. The spread was 9. Very annoyed by that, but they had it pretty handily. But this was a similar spot for Colorado State because they don't lose that game to Nevada. Sherfield doesn't hit that shot. They win that game. They're in the tournament last year. That cost them being in the tournament 100%. Payback. They're such a good team. My only concern, Gus, you play a team with a big. That's the same thing. But Roddy's so good. He can stretch the floor. I just love Colorado State. I'm just going to be so happy for Nico Medved when they make the tournament. They are legitimately good. I don't know if they can win the conference. Miami's going to have to slip up here. Right now, if you look at it, Colorado State is 8-3 in conference. So assuming they take care of business at home against Wyoming, they're still a game back. So they're going to have to get another game somewhere. But either way, maybe they go for the Mountain West tournament. That'll be exciting. But love it. Love it. Folks, Wyoming, Providence, Wake Forest, and Wisconsin are good enough.
Sometimes the luck metric, you're looking for something that you want to define. Like sometimes you just have to pay attention to the win and loss probability and those columns as well. And those 4 teams that you outlined obviously hit all the marks in the win-loss. Let's do a quick.
Gus, I do get the luck metric. I get it, but
I understand too.
It's like the look ahead spot, contrarian play, flat. That's the sprinkle.
You can create your own narrative, however you like with this.
Yeah, right. Like if you want to say to me, I like pick X, Y, and Z, blah 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 blah, and by the way, the luck metric. But you can't say Providence is a fraud. The luck metric. You can't start with the luck metric. It's a sprinkle, which I love sprinkles. It's not the Sunday. So tell me why you don't like Providence in the matchup, and then tell me the luck metric. Don't go, I'm fading Wyoming. Luck metric. Stop. They're good. They're very good.
if you want to say it's a tricky spot and maybe they're due for a slip up or something of that nature, like you can have that as part of, I don't know, maybe like the third or fourth layer of your conversation about that matchup. It shouldn't be the leading topic. I totally agree with you there.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's ridiculous. Yeah. And then you're relying on a number that's microscopic, by the way, in via KenPom. That number is like multiple decimals. And you're letting that define how you're going to grade out a game, whether you're going to wager on it or grade out a game on whether you're going to pick out, prospects or whether you're going to grade out a game on who you think is going to win the conference. That's silly.
Yep.
Silly. All right, let's do a quick look ahead, which is not silly. We have a couple of cool games on Friday night inside the Big East. We have Iona playing. The A-10 has a couple. Mountain West has one. And then on Saturday, we got a couple of biggies, Mike. We got Texas Baylor, Seton Hall, Villanova, Murray State, Morehead State, and Morehead State and Belmont like knocked heads this evening, and Belmont squeaked it out by 1. So that game is going to be huge. We have Gonzaga, St. Mary's, and then, of course, we have UCLA, USC. So out of those matchups, or maybe you got your eyes on something else, do you have anything that might stick out or something that you're really like paying attention to, whether it be for the casual watcher or for the wagerer out there?
Those are all such great matchups. Colorado State hosting Fresno. I understand Orlando Robinson. Folks, let's just take it easy on Fresno a little bit. I get it. They were playing very well, and Jamal Baker, losing him is a critical piece to this team. They have to make threes with Robinson. I just think Colorado State's going to run him off the floor. This game is going to be Colorado State by 3 or 4. Grab it right away.
Yep.
They are not losing this game. So I'm taking Colorado State, no problem there. Other games on Friday night that jump out right away. Iona going to Siena. I'm going to take 10 with Carm. I'm going to talk to Coach Massarello. We had it on the YouTube channel. I think this is a tough spot for them. They're going to play hard. I'm expecting Iona to win, Gus, but if it's going to be 10 or 11, you're going to give me with Coach Parm here, I'll take it in 2 seconds. No problem.
He's proven that he can do that.
That's pretty much it on Friday. UNLV Boise, if that interests you. St. Bonaventure, St. Louis. I love St. Louis at home. 8's a lot. I know St. Bonnie's is going the wrong direction, but 8 is an awful lot. And I have no interest in Xavier whatsoever. I'll take UConn. I just told you I didn't like UConn. But in this situation, I don't trust Xavier at all.
And then how about on Saturday? You looking at anything on Saturday? We have, I guess, if you want to jump into Gonzaga, St. Mary's, or maybe something else on the West Coast. So is there anything else that you're looking at on Saturday?
Yeah, Zags by 1 billion. I'm not falling for that. The one time I did pick St. Mary's, the one time I picked St. Mary's every time they lost, I finally picked Gonzaga. They win. I'm going Gonzaga there, no problem. Holmgren's playing at a different level right now. A difference maker. Can't really say anything about that. I expect Baylor to play very well at home. They need to make sure that they're healthy. I want to see, Flagler, is he healthy? LJ Cryer did not play. I think he's a difference maker for them, but Absolutely. I do not trust Texas. I think that was a great win over Kansas, but I do not see staying power with Texas whatsoever. I don't. I think Chris Beard's first year has been really solid.
Yeah.
But I think Baylor's at a different level. I will be taking Baylor in that game. Like I said, Ohio State big against Michigan. Not buying the Michigan turnaround right now.
I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the other part with you mentioned with Texas, they're going to be able to get up for these games, but I think Texas finding consistency is going to be tricky because of the roster makeup. Every other team in college basketball has super seniors coming back, transfers that have been in, like and continuity on both the offensive and defensive end. That's what Texas lacks. So I think game to game, they're really interesting. But as far as putting them on a streak, I think that's a little tricky.
I've found this year, Gus, when I'm wagering that my initial instinct is usually right. So I'm just going to go through a couple of games here, and I want to get your reaction.
Okay. This is always fun, right?
I just found like my initial, since we watch so much college basketball, and we're always, my initial reaction is always usually right. Ready? I'm going by KenPom. Wake Forest -7 at home over Miami. That's a lot of points. That's just my first reaction. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's a lot of points too, and I think Miami still thinks they have a crack at this thing. So, and they've played every big game pretty close. Yep. I think it's too much. Too much.
Drake at Bradley, 3. I'll take Bradley.
Yeah, I will too.
Mississippi State at Strong Ass Offer. Strong Ass Offer -8.
Really?
Yeah, they have an 8.
How are you not taking Mississippi State there?
Yeah, it's a lot of points. They're coming off a loss. By the way, can we give a quick shout out here? Tom Noy, love coming on the podcast. Folks, the team that is leading the Atlantic Coast Conference is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish at 10-3. Actually, they're probably Duke won tonight, so Duke is 10-3 also. But coming into tonight, Notre Dame was leading the conference. They are on the road at Clemson. They're going to be favored by 3. And they're doing this without Leshevsky, who hopefully will be back for this game. If he's back, I like them. If he's not back, are we taking Brad Bremel getting 3 at home?
No, I think this goes back to your premise earlier. I love Notre Dame in that spot. Are you kidding me?
I agree. That's all I got, buddy.
That's fabulous. Listeners out there, thank you so much for letting us join you during the college basketball season and putting us in your lineup or your queue as far as your basketball information goes. Mike and I love putting it together and love talking to you, at you, with you, and alongside you and watching the games with you. So thank you so much. We totally appreciate it. Of your time, and thanks for allowing us to keep you company during the season. It's really cool. If you really like what you're listening to, please don't forget to give the podcast a kind review and maybe subscribe on your podcast consumption vehicle of choice. Kindness is always cool, so hit that up, and then don't forget to give the podcast a follow over at Twitter at SDS Podcast, and give Mike a follow over on Twitter as well at Randall Rant. And we're working on a few other items via social media that we might let out in a little bit. So hopefully there'll be some other cool stuff that you can just check out, and we'll pull the curtain back a tiny bit. Mike, anything else for the listeners out there?
That's it. Let's just see if we can get Chris Paul over 16.5 points right now. Suns up 91-74. He's got 13 in the third.
All right. He's got to hit a 3 and then just put it to bed, right?
Yeah, he's got the over under, Gus, for points, rebounds, and assists. He got that. He's at 32. It's 32.5. I assume we'll get 1. But we could use 4 more points here. So Bucks, keep it close. Let's do the fouling game. 4 points. Get to the window. See you on Friday.
Bucks playing incredible, by the way. Holy smokes! Wow, what a demolition of the Lakers. All right, listeners, we'll catch you the next time. Thank you so much for tuning in, Mike. Always so good to do this. Go. Cheers, cilantro, grazie, everybody. Arigato.
Cozy in the candlelight.